joining us, Elmari Richter again. Background is what is reported in the news on what happened some time ago at the farm of President Cyril Ramaphosa and the allegations that he failed to report the robbery that happened there on his farm. And the allegation is that he was guilty of an offence because of his failure to do so. Now, we certainly don't want to get into any detail in respect of that specific matter, but maybe I can just ask you in general, is there an obligation of anyone or on a person in the country to report a crime if he was the subject of that crime?
Yes, there is that obligation on us to actually report the crime. When we are a victim, we have to report the crime. That's how we actually fight crime in our country, is by reporting. No one will know something happened to you if you did not report. So we have an obligation to report crimes. And then another question arises where, what if I'm a spectator? Now, what if I see a crime occurring?
So you're not the victim?
You're not the victim.
Someone breaking into a car or whatever?
Yeah. Now, there we don't necessarily have a legal duty to report. There's more of an expectation that we should report. But now we have to use our common sense, as I would like to call it. You know, if you see someone murdering someone else, you cannot keep quiet. Then maybe you can be seen as an accomplice. So you have to weigh up the circumstances that you are in. But there's an expectation then that we do report crimes, not necessarily a legal duty. Other circumstances, maybe when you are a person in authority and something's happening in your company or whatever the case may be, there's a criminal offense like corruption or theft or that type of things. Treason is also commonly known. Then we also have the duty to report. So when we say there's an expectation or there's a legal duty to report, it's not necessarily, I would like to call it like a black and a white, you know exactly always what to do. That's why I always advise rather go and report. The police will take it from there. Make sure that when you report that you are doing it in good faith as well. Obviously, when you report a crime, when you are a spectator, for example, and you've done it in bad faith, trying to get someone in trouble, that can most definitely get you in trouble as well. So we should make sure that we do things in good faith. We should report crimes. That assists the, SAPs and everyone who is actually fighting crime. And then make sure that we should not just keep quiet for the sake of keeping quiet and not trying to get involved.
Okay, but then there's another category, am I right? Sexual offences.
Yes.
There another set of rules apply. So what you just explained now is in respect of other crimes.
Yes.
But for sexual offences, other rules should be followed?
Definitely. Now, sexual offences, this is a clear-cut case. If there's a sexual offense and you are aware of it, even just the mere possibility of or assumption that there is sexual offense, you must report. That's set out in the Criminal Amendment Act, more commonly known as the Sexual Offences and Related Matters Act, as well as in the Children's Court Act. The Children's Act specifically also states if there's a sexual offense, one must report. And then what the Act also says, and I think this is very important to take note of, is the Act says that if you think there's, something's happening there and you go report, you cannot be held liable civilly or criminally if you laid a charge or a complaint. The Act actually says you cannot be held liable because we all have a duty to report. And I think it's very important that people take note how serious this is. We must report sexual offences. Because you know what? You are then fighting for the vulnerable people, especially when we look at the Children's Act and what they say about sexual offences. We must report so that we can actually help the kids, that we can give a voice for the kids, and most of all, that we can prosecute the offenders. Because we want to take that people out of the public and make sure that the kids, for example, or women or whoever, are well taken care of.
So if you have the suspicion that someone is sexually abusing a child and you report that to the police and that person is arrested and perhaps even charged, and even if that person is then found to be not guilty, he cannot sue you for defamation, etc. of character because of that protection that you have in terms of the Act.
Yes.
So obviously that is to encourage all people to report any suspicions on sexual offences, knowing that they won't be held liable for defamation and whatever other claims
Yeah.
might be brought against them.
That's the way of protecting the public. And the thing is, our legal duty here to report go as far as merely reporting. You don't have to worry what happens next. The police or the social workers involved, they will take the complaint further. You merely have to go and report. And with sexual offences or assault, whatever the case may be, you can report it at the Department of Social Development. There's a number on their website that you can call. You can go to the police station and report it there, or you can approach a social worker working, for example, for family welfare or whatever the case may be. You can also report that sexual offences at their offices as well. They assist you completing a form and then they take it from there. So they really make the process as easy as possible for the public to actually go and report. And there's a big obligation on people and members of public, but especially on teachers, people working at churches, that
For example, a
often
teacher realizing that a child
something's
is
wrong with
abused
the
by
child.
parents or
Yes,
step-parents or whatever might be the case, there's also that obligation.
there is that obligation. And like I said, the obligation is also on churches. And sometimes people find a church to be their safe place and they maybe admit to certain offences. That person dealing with that matter does have a legal duty to report.
So if there's a confession at church, etc.,
there's a legal duty
the
to report.
obligation
No
to report
doubt
is still
about
there.
it. Yes, it's the same, and some people frown when I say it, but it's the same with psychologists. If you as a patient see a psychologist and you admit to an offense or sexual act that happened to you or whatever the case may be, they have a duty to report it. Even if the conversations are what we would like to call privileged, they have a duty to report.
Maybe just some final questions in that regard. What are sexual offences? Obviously, it's like rape, sexual abuse of children, etc. Child pornography.
Child pornography, pornography in general, if the person obviously didn't consent to it or whatever. So most common is sexual abuse, not necessarily always rape, but sexual abuse. And then is it exploitation? Is that the correct word I'm using? That's also a sexual offense. Even sometimes we've done it in a course, and it was very interesting, where you can read manners in which people talk to one another, and there's a sexual tone to it, where you are actually you are using the messages as a type of a bait. Even that can be seen as a sexual offense. So the definition is very broad, and we have to look after one another and make sure everyone's well taken care of, and therefore we have this duty to report.
Okay, thank you, Elmari.
Thank you.